Hello, everybody. Today I am joined by,
Emmy Mills.
and we are filming the third episode of Cecelia Talks. Thank you for joining me today.
Of course, thank you so much for inviting me and having me on.
Yeah, of course. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so my name is Emmy. Like I said, I am 20 years old. I go to school at Hanover College in Hanover, Indiana. I'm originally from Greenfield, Indiana, which is 30 minutes east of Indianapolis for all of my non-Hoosier folks. Um, But a little bit about me is that I've always grown up, I've lived in a Republican family, and so I've always been right-leaning. But it wasn't really until college and high school and college that I really started to lean more conservative. And it wasn't until 9/10, where Charlie Kirk, the former CEO of Turning Point USA, got assassinated, that I just finally decided that I didn't really want to be silent about my beliefs anymore. I didn't want to hide who I was. And so I decided to get involved and I started a Turning Point USA college chapter on my campus.
Yeah, that's always amazing. I've noticed a rise in political activism since Charlie passed,
Mhm.
both on the left and right. I'd say it's more prominent. But yeah, no, I think it's very interesting, especially growing up in a Republican family. I would say my
Mhm.
family is pretty, I wouldn't say 50-50, but more of like, it's pretty evenly split
Yeah.
among the two, which is always great. Growing up, I kind of saw both sides of everything, and I was able to
Yeah.
form like my own opinion for a lot of issues. I'd say I'm one of the people who didn't inherit my parents' beliefs. Um,
Mhm.
and it's always great to see people like finally make that choice once they like separate themselves and leave home, where they're like, okay, like I know for sure this is how I feel without any outside influences.
Mhm.
Yeah, so starting a Turning Point USA chapter, I went through, some of your little Instagram content, and I saw that you guys got a lot of hate for your Turning Point chapter at your college.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like to tell people, I go to a small liberal arts school, and I'd say they really put the liberal in liberal arts, the different definition of liberal. But no, I would say like majority of my college, I would say it's 95% liberal. And so that was kind of something I was expecting a lot of backlash on. I guess I would say that the thing that I didn't consider is like a lot of my peers that I'm really close with, kind of their backlash on it. And so I've kind of lost a few friends, which, it's not the way that I wanted it to go. But yeah, we have received a lot of hate. And I feel like it looks a little bit different when it's, someone that you really care about and someone that, it's just someone that you pass by in the hallway. And so it's looked a little bit different, like on all sides of the spectrum. It's been from like cyberbullying and to all the way to getting death threats. And so yeah.
And it's always scary too. I mean, I've had friends who've had their a fair share of experiences with death threats, and it's never a good thing. And I honestly think it's
Mhm.
very, very scary that we live in a culture where we've made that acceptable. And I
Mhm.
really think we need to have a cultural shift. I wrote about this recently, but we need to really have a cultural shift about death. I think death is too much of a thing that's played around with, from jokes
Mhm.
surrounding self harm,
Mhm.
suicide, people getting shot, people getting killed. I think it's a very concerning culture, especially to go to college in. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. One thing that I forgot to mention is that at Hanover College, I am studying psychology. And so this is kind of something that's been of interest of me, and especially with social media and the images and videos shared online. So, for example, we could say the video of Charlie Kirk getting shot, very graphic video. And, you think about like if we go back all the way to the caveman ages, like, I feel like us as humans, we weren't supposed to see graphic images like that. And so I feel like, that definitely has an impact on our brain. And I know there's people that will go on Twitter, for example, and that's our entire feed is gore videos, people getting shot, people dying. And so it makes me question, have we become desensitized to it? And what could possibly be the consequences of like extreme desensitization? Is this like, the people that are going out shooting people? Like, it really makes me wonder what, 50 year or even like 10 years down the line, what viewing these images and videos will do to us.
Yeah, I also study psychology at my school. I don't know what you're going to be, but I'm going to be a marriage counselor. So
Hmm.
now that's what I'm gonna focus on when I like go do my masters and all that. But it is really concerning, and I don't think it's talked about enough outside of a political setting why people would be
Hmm.
concerned, and it's really gross. Honestly, it's really gross. And my main concern is right. So you have like the younger generation who's
Hmm.
14, 15, their minds are still developing, and they saw that video, right?
Hmm.
And we're both 20, so we have a little more time under our belt with coping mechanisms, and kind of
Hmm.
understanding like, oh my gosh. But I went through TikTok comments today, and I saw this video of this girl, and like her boyfriend or her husband's a police officer, and she was saying like, I get scared that my husband's not gonna come home today, like come home someday. And the
Hmm.
comments were just horrific, like the worst things that you could imagine people say. And it's like, somebody dying isn't normal, right? And like, celebrating that death is a very, very
Right.
strange thing. And I use the example of Austin Metcalf and Renee Good. The people who
Hmm.
celebrated those deaths disgust me.
Yeah.
Anytime someone dies, if your immediate reaction is celebration, right, of two normal everyday people, it's very concerning. It's very concerning, and I think you should seek psychiatric help if you feel joy in your heart knowing that someone just passed or someone lost their son or daughter. It's a very, very
Yeah.
weird thing to be celebrating.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, going back to your topic, you said Renee Good. That's one thing that I want to touch upon is that when that actually happened, my Turning Point chapter, I wanted to say that, we saw a lot of response from the left when Charlie Kirk got assassinated, a lot of celebration there. But I wanted to say, I feel like there might be like some kind of like celebrating like as a retort, like being like, oh, well, you celebrated Charlie Kirk dying, so we'll celebrate a leftist dying, like for example Renee Good. And I feel like it's very sad on both sides, and I don't think deaths aren't political. It shouldn't be used for political gain. It shouldn't be used as a joke. And I don't know. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's a very scary culture to be living in. It's a very, very scary culture to see manifesting on both sides of the aisle. It makes me very
Hmm.
worried to attend public events or even go out to things like protests. It makes it very, very uncomfortable, and I don't like to think that someone would like to cause me physical harm, but it is a thought
Hmm.
you have to have when you are doing political activism in any sense. You do have to think about,
Right.
okay, is someone having a bad day? And if they are having a bad day, what am I going to do in that situation if someone decides to just put their hands on me, right? Like, I'm not that big. I'm like 5 foot
Right.
four, like 115, and it's scary. It is scary. It's scary to think about. It's scary to think about. We shouldn't have to think about this, but that's like a real reality. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
going to protests and even doing political activism on your college campus.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
But you mentioned right before the show that you recently converted to Christianity. If you want to dive a little more into how you got to that point.
Yeah, so actually I have a weird story. So I actually went to a Baptist preschool, and so growing up I always knew about God, about Jesus. And then it wasn't until like middle school I was going through a really dark time in my life. I was diagnosed with depression at a young age. And I had thoughts like, if God is real, why would this be happening to me at such a young age? And so I actually became atheist. And it wasn't until high school that I started kind of becoming a little bit agnostic, like believing that there's someone out there, but not really sure. And it wasn't until college that I finally I went through a situation. I like to say I was like, at the end of my rope. I was like as far as I could dig myself deep into a hole, and I had a moment with Christ, and he came to me, and I realized that almost like regretful, like what have I been doing with my life? Like my whole life I've been questioning or denouncing him, and it was so like blatant in my face. And it was a coming to Christ moment.
Yeah, honestly, I can relate to that, and in some sense. I converted in like around the end of October in 2025. Yes, that's correct. I have to think about the year. I know it's been months. I still have to think about it. I'm so bad about dates.
No, I
Um
still think it's 2025 sometimes. It's really
yeah, I
bad.
forget. But yeah, so my teacher, my professor said something one day, and it really it stuck with me. And he said it in early September. He said, right, if you were in a painting and you searched every ounce of the painting for evidence of an artist, right, and said, where's the artist, right, you wouldn't find it.
Hmm.
But if you step
Hmm.
outside and you're looking at the painting, you see the little placard underneath, you would see it. And I was like, huh, that's really interesting. I don't really care. And then I moved forward and I was thinking about it and I was like, why, how are we like on a planet, right? Like, and it's perfectly
Hmm.
designed for people. And how are we, like, how did people come to be and stuff like that? And I got like a TikTok on my feed, and it was something about, it was actually the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, and it
Hmm.
was like the salt pillar that they found, like where the Sodom and Gomorrah actually is, and I was like, that's so interesting. Okay, let me pick up the Bible.
Hmm.
So I went to the library at my college. I find a Bible, and I read that story, and I'm like, huh, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna just start reading Genesis. So I read Genesis in about 2 days. That's all I did. And I was like, this kind of just all makes sense. So then I'm like, I don't really know what I'm gonna do with this. Like, okay, I read Genesis, I understand it. What am I gonna do with this? Like, I don't really know what to say.
Hmm.
So then, I end up meeting my boyfriend that I'm currently dating now, and I'm telling him, like, I've been reading the Bible, like I've been really getting into it, and I think I want to go to mass. And he's like, oh, well, I'll just go to mass with you. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, like kind of scared, but I'll go. And then I went and I started talking more with the friars at my school, and I started talking more with people just about faith in general. And I was like, oh, well, this all makes sense. Yeah, I believe in God. And then
Yeah.
it was pretty cut and dry for me. I was never raised religious. My parents aren't religious. I was
Hmm.
baptized as a baby, but that was the extent of my religious experience growing up. But it just kind of all clicked, and I feel like once it all clicked, I was like, okay, like this just all makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the best way I can explain it. It's like it literally like all clicks in place, and it's like you have that moment and you're like, "Oh, wow." It's like from like a non-believer perspective, I tell people, my friends that aren't like super religious, be like, it's so hard and crazy to explain how like it just works 100%, like it just clicks in your brain and you change just like that.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the best way to describe it. And a lot of people don't understand it. Like I never understood it when people said they like
Hmm.
go to church until like I became, I'm a Catholic. So when I became Catholic, it just kind of all made sense. And then, you look at miracles and things like that, and you look at like scientific, like the Eucharist, for example. I know you're Protestant, but like diving into the Eucharist a little bit, there's
Hmm.
scientific studies from outside universities by atheists who are like, we cannot
Hmm.
explain how this works. There is no scientific explanation on how the Eucharist has blood coming from it, and
Hmm.
there's only the mother's DNA that's appearing and stuff like that. And that to me is just like one of the most beautiful things in the world, along with just reading the gospel, and then them finding places in the Bible, right? And people are
Hmm.
go to these sites, and they find the things they were talking about, like places that they never thought to look, and they uncover it underground after thousands of years. It's such a interesting concept to me. It's so fascinating to understand,
Hmm.
diving into the theology as well as looking into like the real world and seeing like, wow, like everything is there. And it's just that I feel like
Right.
that really like confirmed everything for my belief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what has your experience been in college, converting semi recently?
Um, I really compared to my turning point situation, that's taken a lot more, I've had a lot more backlash that on Christianity. I think maybe the only things that, since I've been more open about being a Christian that I've experienced, is definitely maybe the opposite side, thinking I'm coming from a place high above place or acting like I'm perfect. I know that's something when I wasn't necessarily a Christian that, I had this belief that Christians always seemed to be so perfect, like they were trying to be perfect. And then, when you become a Christian, you realize it's quite frankly, we're the opposite of it and we'll never be perfect. And so that's really the only backlash that I have received. And of course, there's some like misconceptions about the Bible, some of the scripture taken out of context. I know like a lot of the women on campus always think that women are portrayed as like very submissive in the Bible, like kind of using submissive in like a derogatory way, and thinking that women aren't necessarily treated the best in the Bible. So really what I've kind of done is kind of taken like a kind and loving approach to explaining some of these topics because I know that there's a background there. I talked to some of the faculty at the school and them voicing their concerns, saying that, a lot of people may have religious trauma, like trauma from the church. And so kind of just taking a kind and loving approach to have these conversations because I can understand how it can definitely be hard, but showing the truth, I show the truth, and I think that's the best way to show the truth.
Yeah, I feel like there is this weird image that women in the Bible are really respected for some reason
Hmm.
by people who have not read the Bible. And I always think that's so interesting. I'm actually wearing
Hmm.
a Mary, the Mother of God, on my necklace
Yeah.
currently, but it's like you, if you read the Bible, Mary is one of the most beloved women
Hmm.
in Christianity. People people venerate Mary to the most they can. Like people, it's the Mother of God. The woman's so important and so respected, and it's just it's insane to me because it's like, especially looking at like Catholicism for example, like we love Mary, right? I'm not gonna deny that.
Hmm.
Everyone, we get the Mary worshiper allegations. No, we don't worship Mary, but we love Mary. That's the
Right.
Mother of God. Like, why wouldn't you love the Mother of God? Like, that's like pretty important. And it's honestly heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because I'm
Hmm.
like, no, if you really think about it, like, or I don't know if you've watched The Chosen at all.
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, you have to. There's a scene. There's a scene of Mary, and she's playing with like a younger version of Jesus. And for
Hmm.
some reason, I've always thought about this, but it always like pulls something in my heart, like the deepest part of my heart, and I sob. I completely
Hmm.
sob. I break down crying every single time. My boyfriend's like I get it, but like why? And I'm like it's just there's such I think there's just such like a deep pull for motherhood, especially when
Hmm.
you become a Christian and you see how
Hmm.
important and how nurturing, like mothers can be. And it makes you honestly strive to be better.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so how do you think like becoming Christian has like kind of affected your experience as a woman and like your femininity?
Oh my gosh. In many ways, you know, I think in our society, and this is, I always like to knock on modern feminism. I think, I love OG feminism, but modern feminism, I think, is taking womanhood, taking it a turn for the worse. I feel like in our modern society, because of feminism, like we're supposed to feel like we need to be a man, like we need to be the man in our career field to get ahead, to be ambitious. But ever since becoming a Christian and reading the Bible and hearing about all the women in the Bible and their leadership and realizing how they fell back on their femininity, and it's made me realize my femininity more, realizing that I don't need to act a certain way if I want to be a leader. I don't have to necessarily act like a male. And so reading their stories has helped me a lot, lean on that a lot.
Yeah, I honestly think that's like a perfect way to describe it.
Hmm.
Um, I'd say my experience is pretty similar in a sense where I feel more in touch with my feminine side and I feel more
Hmm.
confident being feminine as,
Hmm.
a lot of times like especially society and living in a mostly secular society, we see women feel
Hmm.
like they need to be super strong all the time and they can't show emotions and they can't present themselves too feminine. And it's concerning, no, because the strongest women in the Bible are so feminine, yet
Hmm.
some of the strongest people within.
Hmm.
And it's really concerning and it makes me worry about, a younger generation of girls thinking that they have to act a certain way or behave a certain way in order to be accepted in society. It's like, no, like it's okay to like typically girly things. It's okay to be
Hmm.
feminine. You don't have to portray yourself as a man or copy male typical behaviors. You can just be you.
Hmm.
You can just be you. You
Yeah.
can be feminine and being a woman is such a beautiful gift. And one of my favorite people, Tucker Carlson, he talks about his wife and he's like, I don't quite understand women, but they're so unique and they're like so valued and they're so precious and they're perfect. Women were
Hmm.
designed in such a perfect way. And I think that's like really, really fitting, especially when you apply that to um, Christianity and femininity and remaining in sort of like a biblical femininity to a sense of you are a very strong
Hmm.
minded woman, you're very strong willed, but you also are still maintaining your femininity.
Hmm. And I feel like us as women, we biologically and psychologically are more compassionate, more nurturing. And I think that shows up a lot in our leadership. Not to say that men can't be good leaders and also compassionate and nurturing. I just feel like women are naturally better at it. I currently work in human resources with a company, and it's a humanities job, and so um, we talk about some very deep things sometimes with the employees, and it's often that they would rather sometimes talk to a woman if it's something like deep in person. Like even males would often opt to have like talk about a woman if something's going on in the workplace, if they're wanting to talk about their emotions. And so I feel like this feministic idea that women need to become men. I feel like we're losing out on that feminine leadership. Like people are going to miss that if we choose to erase our femininity in order to achieve this idea of success. We're going to lose that big part of us.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I feel like modern feminism has also set men back in some ways of where they think
Hmm.
that they cannot show any emotion or it's not masculine. Where it's like the
Hmm.
most masculine thing you can do is tell someone how you feel, express how you feel, and work on yourself to become better. I think that's so
Hmm.
important, and I feel like modern feminism has led, men to think. I see a lot of women on TikTok saying, like, oh, men just want to be girls. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't really think that. I think that they want to express their emotions they've been repressing since they were 15 because they've been told to man up by
Hmm.
a society that pushes for, such a competitive, um, aggressive world.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would also even go to say that modern feminism, I feel like, we're instead of trying to build women up as equals, we're more focused on bringing another gender down. I feel like it's almost gone to the point where we're becoming men haters. And I feel like that's caused there to be less dominant males in society, more males wanting to be more feminine, more males wanting to be kind of dominated, because that's kind of the feministic ideal, is that we're going to be the dominant gender. We're going to be the dominant gender. And so that's why I personally think we see like so many feminine males now, so many males that are so like aggressive with each other, saying like you shouldn't cry. Like I feel like I don't feel like we have a good middle. I feel like we have on the one end like a very feminine, like in touch with his feelings male, and then like the very hardcore, like strict male, and they're like clashing at each other. And I'm like, we need to like help fix this to be in a perfect find a perfect middle. And I think I would honestly say that I think feminism, women have contributed to that.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I do think there is no middle ground at the moment. I think it's very scary in some sense because I truly believe there are a lot of men out there who need a good cry. They need a good cry.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a good cry once in a while. And you're lying to
Yeah.
yourself if you're saying that you don't need a good cry. Right? You don't need to know why you're crying. Just get it out. Just get it out. If you're
Mhm.
holding it in, just get it out. Um,
Right.
and I feel like you see a lot of, the alpha male stuff taking over, and everyone needs to be an
Hmm.
alpha, and everyone needs to be aggressive and cutthroat on top. It's like, no. We actually
Yeah.
don't need people to be like that whatsoever. We need people to realize, hey, this is everyone's first time on Earth, right? This is everyone's first
Yeah.
time living. We need to be more compassionate and more caring with others.
Hmm. And I feel like one thing I feel like common backlash on whenever I talk about men's issues today is like, oh, you're a pick me, like you're doing it for male validation. I'm like, I'm a psychology major. Like this is what I want to do. I
Yeah.
could care less what a man or a woman thinks about me. I just want to see the day where people aren't confused about their identity and who they should or shouldn't be. And I would agree with you about the alpha male situation. There's so many podcasts out there and so many influencers saying that men need to be this, and on the same half, women saying and women need to be this. And it causes a lot of confusion for people our age, people younger than us. And one of the biggest ways that I think that we can combat that is, in the secular world, picking up a Bible, and you won't be confused about your identity anymore. And so, for example, when I started to fall back on my femininity, when I became more in touch with my faith and started reading my Bible more. And so, um, oh,
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think I do believe that a lot of men feel kind of confused on who they're supposed to be in the world. There's so many different people telling them different things. Same with women.
hmm.
And I think at the end of the day everyone's trying to be who they're meant to be. I
Hmm.
think it's hard though, especially growing up in a world where you get backlash for like you could tie your shoes the wrong way and you'll get a hate comment.
Right.
And so I think it's especially difficult, and I think we put a lot of pressure on young men to know exactly who they want to be and exactly what they want to do by the age of 17, and especially young women as well, that you need to know exactly what you want
Hmm.
to do and exactly who you want to be at 17. And it's very upsetting, and I agree with the pick me comments as well, right? Being in psychology, I know you could probably relate on this, but you just want to see the best for everyone. You
Hmm.
like, if it was up to me, if I had, my one wish, it would be to, cure any sort of mental disorder, because it kills young men. You see a lot of young men who
Hmm.
are extremely depressed or addicted to things like um OnlyFans or pornography,
Hmm.
and it's very concerning because those things, they destroy your brain. It's not good for you. It's not
Hmm.
normal. We were never meant to see 1,000 people every single day. And I know I've personally struggled, I like to compare myself a lot, and I've tried to get better at it
Hmm.
over the years. But like, you go on Instagram and you see someone who's had, a couple $100,000 worth of surgery done, and you're like, will I ever be good enough? Like, will I ever
Right.
be able to compare it? And I feel like young men experience this, especially with, there is a level of toxic gym culture where people are on a billion different peptides and they're taking a bunch of different steroids, and young men will sit there and go, well, will I ever be good enough? Will I ever look like this? Will anyone ever love me if I don't look perfect and I'm not an 11 out of 10? And I think it's really sad. And I think if I agree with you, if a lot more people picked up a Bible and lived their life in that way, we'd have a lot less of these problems.
Mhm. And then I wanted to touch upon that as well as like, we have to realize that we're actually currently in like a male loneliness epidemic right now. Um, I think, and I not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure June was Men's Mental Health Month. And so I saw some influencers speak about men's mental health and speak about the male loneliness epidemic. And there's a lot of people in the comments saying, "Good, it should stay that way," or like, "We don't care," or "This is how you make us women feel." And so I think there's not a lot of seriousness being taken with this subject. And you think like people ask like why as women should we care? Well, fortunately I'm single, but this is like the environment that my husband is growing up, and then when I do choose to have a child, if I have a son, this would be the environment that my son grows up in. And so I would definitely like to see attention towards males mental health and loneliness epidemic improve, because these issues affect us as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's concerning. It is a concerning time to think and want to have children, especially knowing that they're going to grow up in an environment that does not appreciate them for their
Hmm.
femininity or being masculine. It's upsetting to see, and it's kind of disgusting to see, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um yeah, but there is a men's loneliness epidemic, but I'd also say women. I think there was a study that recently
Hmm.
came out that said like a lot of people don't have a lot of close friends. And I
Hmm.
feel like there's been like so many people just feel so isolated all the time. And it's very concerning. It's very concerning to watch. It's very concerning to experience. And like I know myself, I'm like somewhat victim to it. That I'm a person
Hmm.
where like I've always been like I don't really feel like I need a lot of friends. Like I'd rather just be by
Yeah.
myself. And as I'm getting older, I'm like, "Yo, what is wrong with me? Like I need to go outside." And I think part of it is like the mental health stuff, for example. But I feel like, Christianity kind of has helped me in a sense, like be more
Hmm.
out there, do things that I wouldn't want to do. And I'd say my boyfriend especially has pushed me to be more social and be more out there. And he's like, I know you, like you're an amazing person to be around. I think you need to be more social and just be yourself and people would like you. And I was like, that sounds so scary. Like living in a digital
Yeah.
age, being yourself sounds so terrifying.
Hmm. I think of people saying like on Instagram or TikTok, they're like they don't want to be clipped doing something embarrassing. Like think of I'm gonna talk about college culture a little bit, but if you ever like go to a party, like nobody's dancing. I'm like, we
I
have all
want to
this music, we
dance.
have a lot of fun time, and like everybody's afraid to dance because they're afraid they're gonna get clipped.
That's honestly so true. Um I actually refuse to dance for that reason alone. I am terrified. And as like I'm terrified of someone taking a video of me. And I feel like that's like it the world shouldn't be that way where we are living in a you can get clipped and like people will make fun of you for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
But it's like I get scared to breathe too heavy in the gym because I'm like what if someone records me and like I get posted on TikTok like this girl breathes so heavy or
Right.
like
Or you accidentally look at their camera or something. Be
yeah,
like,
or like I'm walking up the stairs and someone's like recording something and I trip and fall and that's all I'm known for the next 4 years. And it's like
right.
I wish, like I really do wish I think about this almost every day and I've talked about it with my parents, but like I kind of want to get a flip phone and just like, live in the middle of nowhere and not be around any like cameras and stuff. It's so frustrating. And like I've
Hmm.
changed my mentality a lot recently. And I've been saying this more and more, but being cringe is being free. Right?
Yeah.
The
Like bring
moment
back whimsy.
yeah, bring back whimsy and joy. Bring back being happy and excited about things. So many people want to be nonchalant. I'm the least nonchalant person possible. Um,
Right.
bring back happiness. Bring back being excited to do things. Bring back, tell me about your interests. I really care about that book that you're reading. Like, tell me about it. Like, I want to hear. And I
Right.
feel like so many people, the who asked sort of thing, and like the culture of
Hmm.
just like being rude. Like, people are too comfortable with being rude.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
People are way too comfortable being rude. So we've gotten to this point where, like, we're so disconnected from each other. You can't even experience anything without someone being like, bro's way too excited. Bro's having way too much fun. It's like, how about you put a smile on your face for 1 second and
Right.
experience joy?
Right.
Right? Not everything has to be serious. Not everything has to be a LinkedIn post. Like, you can go out and have fun, go to the park, take a walk around, go fishing, go on a swing, smell the roses for 2 seconds and have some joy
Right.
in your life. And I do think the social media, as much as I love like posting and being able to share
Hmm.
my opinion, I do think at the end of the day, social media has caused so many problems, especially for our generation growing up, where we
Hmm.
just like are constantly thinking, oh, what are people going to think about me? What if this gets clipped? Oh, what if I get this picture taken of me at a bad angle and I look ugly and people now think I'm ugly and I'm gross? And it's like, who
Yeah.
cares?
And
Who
it's so hard
cares?
too because it's like, I definitely agree with the sentiment that like I want to is so important in our society that it's like great advertising, or if you have like, for example, if you're have a political interest that you want to advocate for, like there's no other better way to do it than social media. So we're kind of forced and trapped into this box, like you have to be on social media to get your point across. And so it's definitely hard. It's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I feel like that'd be a great point to leave off on. If you have any
Mhm.
closing statements you'd like to share.
Well, I think honestly, the best thing I could say ending off on this topic is that, I'm chalant because God has given me so many things to smile about. I feel like, I've seen a lot of Christians bring back whimsy. And so that's something I like to see, Gen Z Christian movement, but also bringing a little bit of whimsy in it. So, of course, yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, this was episode 3 of the Cecelia Talks show. Tune in next week.